Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dogs Down South. Christmas is, oh man, Christmas. It's over with. Man, if I didn't get to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, I hope you had a great Christmas. New Year's is upon us. We are a couple hours away from officially being New Year's Eve, and then bringing in 2025, and then hopefully a little later on in the evening towards New Year's Day, we'll see the Dogs um, bringing us to victory against Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. Welcome. Um, it's going to be a really cool night. I'm flying solo tonight, missing my man, Rich Man and Fish, but was going to get a little preview show in before the big game on New Year's Day night, 8:45, and down in New Orleans, the Sugar Bowl. Man, it seems like forever since we saw the Dogs. It seems like forever, man. But it's upon us. The Dogs are in New Orleans as we speak. Lots to talk about tonight. We're going to do a lot tonight as I fly solo. But just know that um, when we do so, we're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to look at the bracket. We're going to look at each game tonight a little bit. We're going to pick these games towards the end. If you're joining us on any of our podcasting platforms, YouTube, trying to get to 1,000 followers. But if you're on YouTube with us, Dogs Down South on Facebook, Twitter, X, and then 24 hours later on Apple Podcasts, creeping up on that 700th play of Dogs Down South. Was hoping to get to 1,000 before the end of the year, but who knows, man? Who knows if the Dogs take us on into late January and win a national championship? We just might. But we're going to cover some headliner things that are going on. Not too many. We're going to stay Sugar Bowl and keep the main thing tonight, college football playoff. We're going to break down a little bit of Notre Dame, what we can expect from Notre Dame, talk a little bit about what we've seen so far in some of the bowls. Not too much. Like I said, we're going to keep the main thing tonight. But if you haven't already done so, make sure you go follow us on all these platforms. Share the stream. That would be awesome as well. So let's hop right in. Obviously, as you know, as I said, the Dogs are in New Orleans. I thought it was pretty funny. Um, the media got to take in a pretty good amount of practice. It was a little bit different. I know a lot of social media got hit with seeing a lot more of live practice from Georgia when they had their very last practice before they boarded the plane to go to New Orleans. That was in the practice facility over at Buttsmere, and got to see a lot of stuff you don't normally get to see. You got to see a lot of reps going on, a lot of stuff going on throughout the indoor practice facility, as well as a lot of incoming freshmen in our signing class for 2025. A lot of those guys were practicing in pads and doing reps, and are going to be traveling. Some of them traveling to the bowl game with the Dogs, are there on the ground with them as they get ready to play Notre Dame on Wednesday nights. That was exciting to see. But then as we got into bowl practice today, I thought it was pretty funny to see that the media viewing period was allowed. But for second day in a row, I think it was second day in a row, Kirby allowed them to watch the yoga session of practice. I thought that was pretty hilarious. So they got to take on about 10 to 15 minutes of the yoga session. But from what I'm hearing, the team looks relaxed. They look poised, as they should. It's a business trip. Georgia has said this numerous times. So this is a business trip, and we are on the second round of the playoffs. This is not like some of the trips that some of these other schools have taken where they know this is their last game. They're kind of taking it all in. They got a lot going on as far as just doing things, outings, things going on. I know today I was out at Busch Gardens in Tampa here, and I saw members of the Michigan band, the Alabama band. They were out at Busch Gardens, did a whole Battle of the Bands things, getting ready for the ReliaQuest Bowl here in Tampa. And so that was cool. Has seen them out and about and things on the social media around Tampa, where Michigan and Alabama are doing all this stuff. But this is a business trip for Georgia, and and a lot on the line uh, for Georgia, and just a lot of for some media outlets, they think a lot of just unchecked boxes for Georgia. They don't really know a lot. They don't really have a lot to say about Georgia. I'm finding that to be a common theme. A lot of people obviously going directly to Gunner Stockton. I think that has been the number one go-to piece of news footage around Georgia the last few weeks as the SEC championship game came to a close and Georgia beat Texas and became the SEC champions and did it with Gunner Stockton in the second half, and obviously finding out that he would be going forward as the starter, and then you see Beck Carson declaring for the NFL draft, and so I think who knows? I mean, there's a lot we can talk about that, but I don't want to bog down the stream tonight with that. I kind of want to stick to the main things, but so there's a lot of obviously a lot of background story going on for the media, but I will tell you that as I'm keeping up with what's going on, this is definitely a business trip for Georgia. Big game. Nobody's overlooking Notre Dame. We'll talk about Notre Dame here in a little bit, but nobody's overlooking them. But there's a lot of social media content going around about how this is going to be a walk in the park. Georgia had the easiest, the easiest line to the national championship game, so on and so forth. But that's not the case. I know the first round didn't really tell a lot about this playoff, and I don't think the second round is going to be the same as the first round. And believe me, we are going to talk about this playoff and how it came to pass, and the selection committee and the process for the future and things about that. We have plenty of time at the end of the season to talk about that, and there's a lot to talk about that, because I do think that the best the best 12 teams they were not in that bracket. I think they tried to get the best 12 by their way. They tried to do it kind of politically correct per se, but we didn't really get the best 12. We got the 12 that was politically correct, and I don't think it gave for a great viewing session on that first round. So let's hop right in. Obviously, big thing we want to talk about, headlining stuff for Georgia is number one, first and foremost, Gunner Stockton is the quarterback going forward. So what, a lot of Georgia fans are like, so what does this take on what we're going to look like come New Year's Day at about 8:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? A lot of you guys saw, Gunner in the SEC championship game. You see him very limited throughout the year, but the things I'm hearing, I'll give you the input that I'm hearing, and I'll also give you the input about Gunner. A lot of people, it's very eerie, because even a lot of the guys, even Richman and Fish have mentioned Gunner a lot. When Carson had his woes of interceptions and giving him the opportunity and so on and so forth. One of the biggest things that catches me about this Gunner Stockton transition is, I think the three biggest things that step out and really scream at me, that give a lot of our listeners and a lot of Georgia fans some positive momentum going into this game. I'll give you the first thing. The first thing in this order too. The first thing big is I'm continuing to hear the players that this guy is more of a rah-rah type guy in the huddle. He's a guy that people step up the juice on. They kind of want to go at it a little bit more for Gunner. He brings a little more juice to the table. He's a little bit more he wears his emotions on his sleeve where Carson didn't. You caught a lot of opportunities this year where you either saw Carson very robotic looking or you saw him smiling when when social media caught him possibly not needing to smile, whether it be an interception or just getting, you know, just pummeled by Ole Miss or any of those avenues. But at the end of the day, now that whole era of quarterback play is over. It's over. The Carson Beck we'll talk about in the offseason. Where does this land Carson Beck and what as far as his legacy at Georgia and things of that nature. But it's just this is probably not part of the chatter tonight. I don't think it should be. But I think Gunner brings some juice. I think he brings a lot of player loyalty to them when he shows more emotion on his sleeve, which therefore lets our players play with a little bit more emotion. I think the second thing that you're going to see is he's got a little bit more pep in his step as far as taking off, running the ball. There'll be maybe some more design runs. I think the offense will look a little trickier. It reminds me a little bit of the Stetson Bennett era where, you look at Stetson Bennett and you didn't look at Georgia and go, oh, well, Georgia's an RPO offense with Stetson Bennett. No, we had a pro style offense last year with Stetson Bennett. But a lot of those times when you either have to throw the ball away, see Carson's option a lot of those times when those interceptions happened where we're throwing the ball to try to not take a sack. Where I think now our second option, whether it be check down, whether it be throw the ball away, but I think there's an option in there where we legitimately go, we can run the ball. I think we want to keep our offense very pro style where that's not the case of every time we turn around, we're pulling it down and trying to run it. But I think it adds a great, I think, third layer to our offense. And he runs it effectively. You saw it in the SEC championship game. He runs with grit. He's got a little bit more God-given born speed, and then I just think he's a little bit more elusive than Carson was. I think Carson showed us that could be part of his game, but I do think Notre Dame and other teams are looking at Gunner to be a little bit more of a mobile quarterback in terms of the game plan. Then the third thing I think he brings to us is he's a guy that he still has some veteran caliber to him. He broke a lot of records, high school records. He's not. I mean, he's thrown for a lot of yards in high school. He's ran for a lot of yards in high school. He's played a lot of football. Rayburn County is not. How should I say this? It's not Jacksonville, Florida. It's not. It's Georgia. I mean, it's down home Georgia. Backyard ball, home cooking. Rayburn County, man. It's not. I mean, let me pronounce that. Rayburn County. It's not. It's as I've heard it said, NIL is not the first thing we're playing for coming out of Rayburn County. So I think those three things they have going for them as far as Gunner Stockton being under center. Now, there's other things. I think you saw Rod Robinson is still dealing with a little bit of a naggy turf toe thing that he could have possibly re-injured while at bowl practice. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means we've yet to see this. I don't know how this report works during the bowl weeks as far as the injury report, things of that nature. But I have not seen that report, so I don't know how they are with that report when it's during the bowl season. Also, look at Brett Thorson. Brett Thorson is out for the remainder of the year with a non-kicking knee injury that he suffered. I haven't heard the exact. Call on what it was, but either or he won't be kicking. So, when you look at the punt responsibilities for Georgia, I know I saw something. I didn't believe anything about this at all, but I saw that there was punting tryouts going on. And I'm like, I don't really think that's 100% true. You know, I think I don't even. I was actually looking it up right now what affiliates had it out there, but um, I don't think that I think Drew Miller is gonna be fine. I was actually looking to see if there was, like, any big time. I mean, MSN had a little thing on it, but, I think Drew Miller is our punter. I don't think we're gonna be seeing, like, uh, I don't know, like Tate Ratledge being like all of a sudden he comes out and he's like this incredible punter we didn't know about or something like that, or Ryan Puglisi or something like that. I think that you're gonna see Drew Miller and Thorson is out. I think you got ETN on 3 weeks of rest. I think ribs will be a little bit better. You got Nate Frazier with a little bit of rest. So they interviewed Arian. Man, what a great guy, man! I just listened to his interview, and I've probably given Arian a lot of words this year. As far as catching the ball, and there's been so many times where I looked, and I think you guys can remember back even in the Georgia Tech game, where if he catches that ball, I mean, we still won, but if he catches that ball, we win a lot earlier than we did. Uh, and there's a couple of more you can think about, but what a classy guy, I mean, go if you haven't already done so, go listen to his Sugar Bowl interview. He is a dog, man. He's a dog, and it was just really good to hear, and it's one of those, man, it's one of those moments where you just look and you go, man, I feel really bad that I said that about. Because you look at the human side of it, and yes, don't get me wrong, he's made some drops, but to see how hard we're going to need Arian, and Arian's going to make a catch like he did against Ohio State that we're going to need, I think, in this playoff, and I think we call those erasers, and I think he's going to erase some stuff coming our way very soon. So, but really good interview by Arian. But we're I think we're healthier. I think the offensive line has had some time between Morris and between Tate and between a lot of these players that just needed that time to get out from under Joel Aguero. I think the corners to continue to mesh well together after Daniel Harris has done a tremendous job stepping in for transfer portal cornerbacks that have left, Humphreys and things of that nature. So I think that's going to be something that has helped Georgia. So on the injury front, I definitely think those 3 weeks have helped. And then when you look at Notre Dame, let's turn to Notre Dame a little bit as far as that goes. And the things that stick out to me, big news. The biggest news that I've heard out of Notre Dame is uh, the the Riley Mills situation, him being out for the remainder of this season. What a blow for Notre Dame, because he is a key point on that defensive line. He's attributed to 7.5 sacks this year. He's a big time reason why they've done so well on defense, and what they've allowed stat wise and points per game, and yards per carry, and sacks. Period. I mean, he's a sack leader, but he's not just a sack leader. He's almost doubled everybody's sack, margin this year. So that's a huge, huge blow for Notre Dame. Other things to look out for, obviously, the familiar name of Riley Leonard, 2,293 passing yards this year, 17 TDs, and a good bit of those have been running the ball. I think what he's done really well in the last 6 games of the year is what we just talked about with Gunner. Is he's learned that he is more than just a running quarterback. He can throw the ball as well, and so very interesting to see how he's developed in seeing the plays through, looking at progressions, and not making the run the majority of why he's back there. I think he has more to him than that, and so for Riley, I think he's gritty. When I remember when he was at Duke, he had a lot of confidence at Duke, and don't get me wrong, like the Duke teams have been good, but he hasn't had the talent like he has around him at Notre Dame, and that has made him a lot better. He was doing a lot of carrying of the team at Duke, where I think at Notre Dame he is definitely a player. He's a leader, but he's also playing a big role on that team. Um, then Jeremiah Love comes off very, very talented running back, Notre Dame. Definitely somebody to keep an eye on. He's went over the 1,000-yard threshold, 1,057 yards, 16 TDs. These two guys are definitely the go-to guys. I would say at receiver, they're pretty balanced. I think they have about 3 or 4 receivers, that are within that 300-400 yard echelon. Um, Tight ends, not targeted entirely a lot. Notre Dame does use them a lot in the blocking scheme and will throw to them, but I think they're very balanced as far as who he throws to. And the scheme is just based off of really who they play. And I went back and watched a few games. Obviously, they don't play in a conference, so we can't go kind of grab, well, how do they play against this team that fared in the conference, so on and so forth. You really don't get that. So then on defense, like I told you, I was really impressed by Riley Mills, but he won't be playing. But the other guy that I'm impressed by is Jack Kaiser, definitely the leader on that defensive side. 41 tackles this year in the linebacker position. Really, really, really headsy guy. In other words, he's very smart. He's always in the right spot. He's the one that's in charge of getting the defense lined up. And I think when you look at these 4 players, these are definitely the 4 players that I think you got to look at as being, as I call the main course meal for Notre Dame. On defense. Who steps into that spot? Can't really tell you. I can tell you that the secondary looked really good. Um, when I saw them play a couple weeks back, against Indiana, I mean, a lot can be said about Indiana, and should they have been there, and was it really Notre Dame, or was Indiana just didn't play anybody, or so on and so forth. But I think Notre Dame's defense played really, really well. We did say, I mean, I picked Indiana, but I said Indiana's going to have to stay on. They're going to have to stay on pace. They're going to have to play with rhythm, and they didn't play with a lot of rhythm, and they didn't stay on a lot of pace. They just looked very jarred and out of sorts, and they couldn't get any timing going, and they couldn't get any routine going, and that hurt them. They were really never in that game because of that. Just staying on pace, staying in motion, staying in rhythm. It hurt them a lot. And Notre Dame, they really kept that. I think Indiana is a team that wants to, they want to be balanced. And I don't think they could ever really establish the run to not commit, anybody to the pass. I mean, Notre Dame basically said, I'm going to have to see you run the ball. Um, and they never really attributed any more to the box, and that hurt Indiana. And I don't know if that's what you'll see against Georgia. We're going to talk about it when we preview the game here in a second, but I do think those 4 people from Notre Dame will be the 4 people to look at. I mean, obviously Mills is not in that, but definitely those 3: Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love, and then Jack Kaiser on defense. And so let's hop in and take a real quick peek before we preview any of the games and pick these games. Keeping it short because I'm flying solo tonight. I just don't want you to, I'm happy to talk for as long as you want to, but I know sometimes a difference change in a voice might be a little bit more appealing to you. So obviously, as we look at the game, so tomorrow night, big game on tap tomorrow night. Big game. Penn State, Boise State is the New Year's Eve game. We're going to get to see if Genty really is who he says he is, really is the stats that he put up this year. Sorry about that. And so, they'll be in prime time. So I'm curious to see what happens. We're obviously going to pick this game and preview this game. But it's our New Year's Eve, bring in the new year, first game of the 4-game slate. And then we got a big slate of games on New Year's Day, starting at 1, then 5, and then 8:45. 1:00 game is the Texas and Arizona State game. The 5:00 game is Ohio State and Oregon. And the 8:45 game is Georgia and Notre Dame. Let's preview really quick what we're going to see, what I think we'll see from Boise and Penn State. And then we're going to pick these at the end. I do like Penn State's defense. I think Penn State presents a lot of problems that Boise has not seen this year, as far as the run game for Boise. I think you're going to have to Boise's going to have to understand that what if Genty can't get off, right? I kind of look at Genty as like the part of your golf game that if it's not on, if your other parts of your golf game are not good, you're just not going to have a good round. Um, I learned that the hard way, when I started playing golf. I used to drive the ball like a long, long way. But then I get down there and, I would drive it within 20 yards of the green. And, my pitching game wasn't strong. My short game wasn't strong. And my putter was 50-50. So when you look at a really great driver, a putter that's 50-50, and a short game that's pretty unpredictable, you're probably going to be one of those bogey, double bogey guys. So every once in a while, when I could put it all together, yeah, I'd shoot my best game. I'd shoot in the 80s. That didn't happen a lot, but it happened a little bit. But I will tell you that there were days that I went out there and the driver wasn't working, and those were the days where I knew the 80s weren't even possible, and I was just hoping I didn't break 100. And then I got towards the end and was hoping I didn't get like 120, which is terrible because when you can go from 80 and inconsistent from the 80s and 90s, to I don't say 80s. Let me stop. I'd say 85s, 86s, just hoping not to shoot under 90. And you hop to 110, 120. It just shows the inconsistency in your golf game. Well, that's kind of how I look at the run game for Boise. If this run game doesn't get off, if Genty is just not the same guy against a stout Big Ten defense like Penn State, what does this game look like on paper? That's where I think this game gets a little bit different. Now, do I think Boise and Penn State's offense and Boise's defense matches up really well? I do. But I will tell you that's not a Mountain West run game coming at you. I think Penn State presents a really good run game. And so, Boise's going to have to stop the run as well as get the run going. So the run for Boise is huge in both facets. On defense, they got to stop the run and make Alar make him pass the ball and be effective in that way. And I think Genty's got to get off, man, because that's the most important part of your offense. Has Boise State had to actually lean on this passing game to win games for them? No. It's 125 yards averaged in each game this year by Genty. He hasn't been held below that in the entire year. Is this the first game? I think it is. And that's a big key to victory for Penn State, I think. When you look at the 2 o'clock game, which tails Texas and Arizona State, Arizona State is as much a mystery as they are. You think you know who they are. You've seen Cam Scadaboo. You've seen, you've seen this team that kind of comes out of nowhere, and they were a Big 12 team who they were like, all right, like, is it Colorado? Is it Arizona State? Is it Kansas State? Like this Big 12 was just like I felt like it sometimes was a coin flip. Do I think Arizona State was just a driving force and like a yes? If I had to say one team out of the Big 12, it would be Arizona State. I think that Arizona State was the best that the Big 12 had to offer. And that doesn't present good things for them against Texas. You can't look at the best thing that the Big 12 had to offer and go, that gives us that's enough against a Texas team. And so as we look at that and we look at, all the things swirling around Texas though too, like is it something that's bothersome? Are they going to come out flat? Because, the last game they played was the SEC championship game. A lot of rumor going around. Is this Quinn Ewers' last game? But it's not. Is this his last few games, whether they win the national championship or whether they don't? Does he go to the NFL or does he transfer? Because all these guys get 5 days after either their win in the national championship or their loss. They get 5 days after that. There's some skepticism. Some people are saying, I don't say a lot of people. Some people are saying Quinn Ewers is not done in the college football ranks. It might not be a good year to go in, but I think Texas is in a tricky position because, do they kind of want Quinn Ewers to go pro? Maybe because, you only have one more year at Quinn Ewers where you have a good possibility. You definitely are getting 2 more years from an Arch Manning, maybe a third. I don't know. Just depends on how it's rolling and what part of the year it is for quarterbacks. But with Ewers, you only got 1 more year. So I don't know. There's been speculation that if Ewers wins it at Texas, does he go pro? If he doesn't win it at Texas, does he stay and hop on the portal and go somewhere where he can win a national championship? But also, like, I think he also maybe when he sits at home at night understands that he presents a weird problem for Texas, and Arch Manning's not going to wait in the wings a third year. Like, he's not. So what kind of problem does this present for Texas? Texas has a hard decision to make. Do they let Arch go to keep Quinn for a year? Do they bench? It's a very tricky situation for Sark, right? However, has all this been a big skeptical for Texas? Like, has Texas had their eye on the prize? That's the only way I think that Arizona State has a chance to maybe make this a game early on, is if Texas is just very a little bit mind blown as to what's going on with the chatter, and there's too much. I call it Matthew McConaughey mess going on around the camp. That's what gives Arizona State a chance in this game. Otherwise than that, Texas is the much more talented team, and Arizona State is still a team that you could have coin flipped and decided, who was going to come into the playoff out of the Big 12, because we look at Colorado and how terrible their showing was against BYU. And then, you go back to the Iowa State win against Miami and go, well, maybe Iowa State, who knows? I still think all those Big 12 teams were a coin flip, but I also think Miami wasn't as good as they were. And we don't even want to get into what, Cam Ward did, things of that nature. And then the 5 o'clock game, which is the huge game that everybody's really looking at, is Ohio State and Oregon. Man, this sets up for a rematch that I think Ohio State wanted, but I think Ohio State didn't really want it this early on. You go from a team that the last thing you saw was them losing to Michigan, and a team where everybody was very skeptical against. They were picked against when they played in the first round of the playoffs. Tennessee was picked by me. I mean, I picked Tennessee. I thought Tennessee would do well. I was very disappointed in what Tennessee brought to the table as far as on the offensive side of the ball. But offensively and defensively, Ohio State showed up. It's a home game for them. They might have. I think you just catch these nuances of Ohio State though that go like, "What are you doing?" You look and you play the complete game, yet there's players at the end of the game going, "We run through the SEC," and it's just like, brother, you just got beat by Michigan. And if you can't beat Michigan this year, you're not going to beat Michigan. I don't think you beat Michigan next year. Like, does Ryan Day have to win all these games to have a job next year? I don't know. Like, I really don't. And I think if Oregon puts it to him by 2 or 3 touchdowns, which we'll talk about it, we'll pick the game, but is this it for Ryan Day? I don't know. A lot of people are saying I've been hearing the kind of Georgia mentality out of Ohio State, like which Ohio State team is going to show up. If the Ohio State team that played the game in the first round against Tennessee shows up, then Oregon's, it's going to be a good game where Ohio State can win. But if they don't, Ohio State's going to rout them. Oregon's going to rout them. I do think Oregon, just the last couple times I watched them, they had a little bit of a hard time really kind of getting going at the beginning of the game against teams that I thought they needed to get going a little quicker against. I think the playoffs are going to really pin a number on these teams that can't get going early. Georgia needs to understand this too. They need to get going early against Notre Dame as well. But I do think the Ohio State and the Oregon game is a big time game, man. It's a big time stage. It's going to be huge. Rose Bowl setting. I mean, if I think Georgia and Notre Dame are in the spot if the Rose Bowl doesn't get that 5 o'clock spot. I mean, I think this is the biggest. I think the biggest game on the slate is Oregon, Ohio State. Then you have Georgia and Notre Dame. We previewed it a little bit. I will tell you, I think Georgia. The biggest thing Georgia has to do is just establish the line of scrimmage really quickly. I think that's been a thing when Georgia has done that. On defense, and they have established the line of scrimmage on defense, and the offensive line has given opportunity for the offensive progressions to happen. The games have gone way different from Georgia. When you get on to some of the stuff they were on with Ole Miss and Alabama, where the offensive line was dominated for a good amount of time, even some of the time with Georgia Tech, I do think it presents problems for Georgia, and it makes them have to sit here and try to put things together at halftime. And you know, I don't want that per se. I don't want that time to run out on us. In some of those avenues. So I think Georgia needs to get off quick. It's been my big thing all year long. Get off quick. Defense in one area or the other. Defense needs to get off really quickly. Look very good against the run. You know, I think Notre Dame's going to challenge us east and west, north and south. I think Notre Dame's always had a great offensive line. Uh, going to be going to be different to see this defensive line as we put it together without their number one player on the defensive line. But that's a huge thing for Georgia is to get off quick, and I think it continues to be a huge thing. Um, so as we segue in and before let's look at some stats, and then we're going to pick these games and we're going to close it down for the night, and we're gonna hopefully bring in the new year tomorrow, and then New Year's Day we're gonna hopefully get a win by Georgia over Notre Dame. But you look at some of the biggest stats. The biggest stat on I'll give you the biggest stat at the end, but passing is the one that's very mind blowing. Georgia had 3,700 yards of passing offense this year to Notre Dame's 2,500, almost 1,200 more yards of passing. However, the rushing attack is about twice as much for Notre Dame at 2,891. Georgia right at 1,680, 1,700. But the big stat that stands out where both Notre Dame and Georgia really stand kind of together on is that points per game. Georgia's in that 10 to 11 mark. I think I have to go look that back up. But the stat that's very contributing to me is you look at a Georgia team that just came off a win against Texas, and Texas' defense is allowing about 13.1 points per game. Notre Dame comes in right behind them at 13.8. And I do think that, just like Texas, I think we can give Notre Dame some fits on defense. And I think Bobo's going to have an interesting game plan to keep Notre Dame off balance. I do think, and I don't want to say too much because we're fixing to pick these games. I'm going to really dive deep. But I do think that Notre Dame will try to make Gunner do this with his arm. I think they're going to take away the run. I think they're going to do exactly what Texas tried to do. They saw it work in some areas and it didn't work in other areas. But I think Gunner's going to have some easy throws to begin with, and I do think that Gunner's going to eventually have to win this game with his arm in some areas. Establishing the run will be huge, but I don't think this is very gimmicky. I don't think we can come out and just go, we got to run the ball straight at them. I don't think we can come out and go, we can be very RPO-ish because I got a feeling that they're not expecting that not to be kept by Gunner. So I think he's going to have to throw the ball. I think Texas assumed that he was going to have to throw the ball and wanted to make him throw the ball, and just so happens they couldn't contain him in some areas. So definitely will be an interesting game. Couple questions real quick. I know there were some mailbag questions that we had from other SEC podcasts that happened. I mean, I'm going to hit them real quick. I thought there's like 5 big thoughts I had. I thought Clemson pushed Texas a little bit farther than Texas should have been pushed. You're talking about a Clemson team who, in my opinion, was not as talented on both sides of the ball as they've been in the past. Obviously, not hitting the portal very hard, and primarily working on developing their players and team and their team around each other. But I think this is one of the less just talented team on both sides of the ball as Clemson per se, and I felt like Texas got, I don't know, man, they got kind of pushed to their brink, which was weird to see that. So does that present as we go into this game versus Arizona State? Like, what does that present for Texas in that avenue? Why? Do you think Arizona State could be Clemson? If they could, how good of a game might this be if Arizona State really is on top of things? Is Penn State, are they as good as they looked against SMU, or is SMU, it just not really didn't deserve to be there? I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, I think SMU didn't deserve to be there. I mean, I really didn't like the choice. I would have much rather seen Penn State playing Alabama. Now, people might hate that. People will be like, are you a real Georgia fan? You want to see Alabama in the playoff? I wanted to see the best 12 teams in the playoff. We're going to be sitting there some if this playoff format continues, we are going to be sitting in an avenue where we possibly could be in Alabama, especially as competitive as the SEC is. But I can tell you this: I think Alabama would have gave a better game than SMU gave. I think Alabama would have gave a better game than Indiana would have gave. Uh, and so I don't know. I mean, Indiana goes in and plays this Notre Dame team. Are we looking at the Georgia Alabama rematch? Now that could be very interesting in the Sugar Bowl. Very very interesting. That's a game that everybody would want to see. Talk about TV ratings. I don't know this panel, and we're going to talk about it at the end of the season. But this panel for me was a little bit weird. So let's hop in. Let's pick these games. So we'll talk about keys to victory for Georgia. Let's hop right in. If you're joining right now or you're on here later on, love you to pick them with me. But let's hop in on the tomorrow night game. Boise versus Boise coming in as the number 3 seed. They're hopping in there against Penn State, who's the number 6 seed. We talked about it earlier. I think this is the run. The word run is key for Boise here because I think they're going to have to get Genty off and get him running the ball because I don't know if Boise has been put into a predicament where the quarterback has to win the game via throwing the football. Now, I will tell you what will catch Penn State off is if you find ways to get Genty the ball that are not in a rushing category. If you can get him some easy, quick outlet throws, some stuff where he's getting the ball in his hands, screens, things of that nature, where he can still do what he does well, which is he's very elusive. He breaks tackles. He has great vision, and they're going to have to stop the run. This Penn State rushing attack is definitely very potent. They have a really great offensive line. The one thing that won't be a factor in this game, in my opinion, is weather. So that's a good thing. Weather's kind of out of the box on this, but when I do look at it, I do think it comes down to who can dominate the lines of scrimmage, and I do think that Penn State has the better defense. I think they're going to probably. Do I want to see Boise win this game? Yeah, I'd love to see Genty run all over Penn State in this caption, but I do think that what's going to be the tail of the tape is Penn State is going to be able to run the football. I do think that Penn State has a really good defense. I think they're going to make this Boise team throw the ball. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be too much Penn State. I think Boise gets about 10, 13 points on the board. I think you could see like a 31, 27, 10, 27, 13, 31, 13 type thing. I'll give you my final. I think it's like a 27 to 13 type thing. If I had to guess, Penn State. I got Penn State in this one. Moving on to the 1:00 game, which is which puts Texas up against Arizona State. I said it earlier. I think Texas. I mean, the biggest thing for Texas is has all this like how much hype has been going on that we haven't heard about. There's a lot of hype going on with Quinn Ewers. There's a lot of hype. I mean, as will Isaiah Bond be healthy? How healthy is this defense? Um, can they get the running game going? It's been very helpful for Quinn Ewers and the Texas offense when the running game has gotten going. I think you saw that against Clemson. Everybody's very high on Texas. There's a lot of people that have Texas winning it all. There's a lot of behind the scenes things going on right now. Like even some like as I talked about it earlier, like what does Texas look like going forward if Ewers goes, hey man, I kind of want to stay. Like I don't think this is the year to go pro, and I'm a Texas guy. A lot of people are going to be looking, going, wait a minute, when does the Arch Manning era start? Because if it doesn't this year, does he transfer? There's a lot of teams that would look at Arch Manning and hop on him really quick. So I don't know. What I do think is that it would take a lot more than some Quinn Ewers drama to move Texas off of this game. I think it's too much Texas, too much 5 and 4-star talent. Scatterboo would have to have 200 yards rushing for this game to be close. I don't think he gets that. I like Texas in this game. I like Texas by 10. Doesn't seem like a lot, but because of the fact that I think Arizona State's going to rely on the run a lot, I think Texas is going to want to get the run game going as well. I think this is a defensive game right here for Texas, and I think I don't know, man. Arizona State's going to have to get some stuff going. It could be. And I think Arizona State gets 14, 17, maybe. But I think you do look at like a 28-17 type game, 31-17, maybe 34-17. There we go. 34-17. I like that. Like a good easy double down. I think 17 is over what Texas allows. But I think Texas has been allowing them. They gave 24 to Clemson. So I do have Texas winning this game, which puts Texas playing against the winner of the 5 o'clock game, which is Ohio State and Oregon. I don't know. I mean, I agree with some people. Like, you got to figure out who's going to show up for Ohio State. This is a big scene. You know, it's a big stage, big scene for Ohio State. They've done this game before. I can see Dan Lanning having his guys mentally ready to play. What you don't see a lot from Oregon is them have to really find that mental toughness a lot. I will tell you, Oregon has had a problem getting off to a really quick start the last 2, 3 games that I've watched them. That I've watched them play against talent that I don't think they were not as I don't think they were that good. Against Oregon that it should have been that close early on. Um, I still like Oregon against Ohio State. I think I think the difference maker in this game is not the talent. I think it's the coaching. I think y'all get Dan Lanning and Ryan Day, and I take Dan Lanning all day long. I think Dan Lanning is a Kirby guy, not just because he's a Kirby guy. He's just got a little more thick skin. He's got a little bit better preparation. He's a little bit more a player's coach in terms of preparation. And when they look at their coach, they look at Dan Lanning. They see poise. They see trust. They see a lot of things that I don't know if this Ohio State team still sees by the entire team. I'm not saying that some don't. You've heard Will Howard and you've heard some players come to Ryan Day's defense, but I do think that in this game, coaching is going to be a huge aspect, play calling, things of that nature. I think Oregon wins this game. I think this is a close game, very, very close. You could see a field goal. You could see a 2-point conversion. You could just don't know how this was going to happen. Maybe in a 4. I think this could be like I don't know, like a 38-35 type thing, 41-34 type thing. I think there's going to be some points scored. But I think Oregon wins. Final prediction on the score. I would go a little lower. I don't know. That might be a little high. Give me 24 points for Ohio State and give me Oregon at 34. Give me 34-24 Oregon. I like that pick. And then Georgia, Notre Dame, 8:45, New Year's Day. I think for Georgia, I think we know what the keys are to victory. I think when you look at what Notre Dame would love to do, they would love to get the run game established with Love. They like to get Leonard. They're going to take Notre Dame would love to take a page out of Georgia Tech's playbook to be able to. I think they're looking at how the North-South really exposed the edges and exposed the passing game for Georgia Tech. I think if any team in the playoff were to take a scouting report, it would be the Georgia Tech scouting report against Georgia. It had us the most confused. Ole Miss to some degree, but also the Ole Miss game, you can go back and look at weather. You can go back and look at scheme on offense. That I think we let Ole Miss on the field a lot that game. But Tech is the one that I think you'll see a lot of people that look and go, okay, how did Tech get Georgia like that? So I think that's what Notre Dame's gonna try to do. I think they're gonna look at Riley Leonard and kind of make him mimic a Haynes King type situation, get some of those elusive backs going, and get the play action going. Notre Dame likes to be methodical about their drives. They're able to hit big, but I think what gave Indiana the most fits was the intermediate passing game against Notre Dame was able to accomplish against Indiana. So I think that's what you're going to see happen with Riley Leonard and Love and some of this offensive scheme against Georgia. And for Georgia, what Georgia would love to do on defense against their offense is I think they want to get to a point where they can take away the run game and make Riley Leonard beat them with his arm. I think that's what they trust the most. Georgia sees a solid victory if Riley Leonard is forced to win this game with his arm. I think their receivers are, you look at 3 to 4 or 5 receivers that all accumulate anywhere from 200 to 400 yards receiving. And I think you look at, I think Kirby wants to pin Kirby and the defensive staff wanted to, depend on that to be what changes the game as far as Georgia is concerned. And then on offense, I think Georgia wants to establish the run game. I don't think you want to just establish it by running it directly at them. I think what's going to happen is uh, I don't know. Maybe you don't go on script as much. I think with Gunner, you need to give him some easy throws, but the RPO game will be great. But I think they stay pro. But they stay pro style. I don't think they change this up much. I just think they kind of get him very dialed in and very comfortable with what he sees and what they're going to show him. Um, and I can guarantee you, Notre Dame's not going to be able to they're not going to be able to accomplish what they did against Indiana versus Georgia, which is put 3-4 in the box and stop the run. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out and play this. But I do think it's something that Georgia wants to do, establish the run as always. And I do think you'll see, that the speed of Georgia against that Notre Dame secondary will be very interesting to see. And with the defensive line a little dinged up for Notre Dame, how that comes into play says it all. Now, where I think the biggest game changer is on the Georgia defense. I think Georgia being able to keep Riley Leonard one-dimensional, make him throw the ball, keep him very uncomfortable, and I don't think he's going to do that very well. And so I think that's the key to victory is not allowing him to become comfortable with his targets, come comfortable with what he wants to do, whether he wants to go east or west, north or south as he runs the ball, hands it off, the pop passes, the bootlegs, things of that nature. When he starts to become very comfortable with that style of the offense, that's where we have trouble. So we're going to have to really figure out the first, I would say, 10 minutes or so of the game, what the defense is going to allow to happen and not, and do it early because I don't think we can continue to rely on these halftime adjustments to come back from 10, 13, 17-point deficits like we did so many times this year. This is, we're in big boy football now. This is the college football playoff. And so even though I do think Notre Dame, I've heard mixed rumors. I've heard Notre Dame should be there, shouldn't be there. And I've heard Notre Dame is going to steamroll Georgia. I'll just leave it at that. I think that you're not going to see some of those methodical, toyish things that you've seen with other games and scenarios you've seen in some of these bowl games. So I do have Georgia winning this game. New Year's Day, finishing the day out. I think defense shows up, plays very well. I would love to see them hold them under 13. I'm going to give them 10. I think defense holds to 10. I think Georgia can score 31. So I like 31-10 Georgia in this game. And they'll move on to play Penn State in the next bowl game. So, yeah. So that's what I got. I got Penn State moving on. I got Oregon moving on. I got Texas moving on. And I got Georgia moving on. So that about wrap it up for tonight. If you haven't already done so, please go join Facebook, Dogs Down South, YouTube. Try to get us to 1,000 followers. Dogs Down South on YouTube, Twitter, X. Go follow us on there. Remember, you can listen to this 24 hours after this. Maybe tomorrow, a little earlier than 24 hours on Apple Podcast. I'll try to get it up for viewers. But thanks for joining tonight. Looking forward to an incredible New Year's Eve. I wish everyone a happy New Year. Since I'm not going to see you or you guys aren't going to hear from me before the new year. So I hope you guys have a great time, hopefully watching the ball drop somewhere safe or the peach drop, whichever you prefer. Bringing in the new year with family, friends, and loved ones, and stay safe. And happy New Year to all the listeners. Thank you for all your support this year on Dogs Down South. And hopefully we got a few more. Our backs are against the wall now. There's no more. We know there's next week. Obviously, we'll, if anything were to happen, we continue going. We start talking about whatever comes our way the off season. But you know what? Honestly, I think we're going to be on here for a few more weeks talking about our next games. But for myself, we're missing Mr. Adam Fisher, Rich Cohen tonight. You guys have a happy new year. And as always, hopefully get a Sugar Bowl win against Notre Dame and go Dogs.